Just before this video starts, I want to say this might very well be the best article Road of the King has ever published. So huge shoutouts to you, Akira, for writing this bomb of an article about the OCG metagame paradigm, which is basically the model, the structure, the patterns of the OCG and its meta, but also for the TCG. It applies pretty much the same way, and you're going to see the correlations very soon. But before this video starts, make sure you like and subscribe, check me out on Twitch, and also consider checking out Road of the King for more amazing articles like this. And now let's jump right into this video. So the article starts off by saying that the meta is pretty diverse in the OCG, as we can clearly tell. A lot of competitive decks are doing pretty much the exact same in terms of competitive performance, except maybe for Eldritch, Brave Tenny, and Branded Despia, which are slightly better than the rest of the competition, ranging anywhere between 3 to 6.1%, so pretty much getting the exact same results. Others is only getting 20%, and even the #1 best deck, Branded Despia, only has 18.8%, which is still lower than 20% compared to the usual #1 best decks that we have in the OCG that were always getting above 20%. So Phantom Knight here, 19.7, and then metagame number 8, 28%. This one is 26.6, and I believe this one is 32.5. Yes, a lot. So over 30%, 1/3 of the top performing decks were playing Phantom Knight Brave, which might be problematic. Now it's less than 1/5 that are playing Branded Despia, which is way more fair. Now the bomb of this article, exactly as I said, is this kind of array, whatever, of control, mid-range, and combos. So this is very in-depth and really explains to you how control, mid-range, and combo decks are so completely different, and they kind of have always an edge against one, but they actually lose to the other. Now before we get into that, we have to clarify what is a combo deck, what is a control deck, what is a mid-range deck. So combo decks are decks that are very aggressive. They really try to summon as many dangerous threats as possible on turn 1, so the opponent just scoops it up literally immediately. There's no back and forth. The goal is really to kill your opponent ASAP. It's a go big or go home strategy, and the grind game is not too great. So if you have to play for too long, combo decks are unfortunately not the way to go. However, control decks are the exact opposite. They start off by being not too aggressive, so they don't really have that many interruptions, and they don't really get to play too many hand traps because they can't really capitalize off of the hand traps as well. However, their late game is disgusting, so if they manage to successfully log their opponent off for maybe the first 1 or 2 turns, better believe that their late game is going to be so ridiculously good that nobody is going to be able to out-resource them. Mid-range decks are actually the weirdest to explain because they're kind of in between combo and control, so their opening turn 1 doesn't actually make that many negates, but what is really important is that they still kind of supplement it with a bunch of utility cards that could be hand traps, that could be Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, other cards like that. So the goal isn't necessarily to do the same thing as combo, but they also aren't as slow as control. In a way, they are exactly what their name suggests, which is literally mid-range. A good example for people who have played the 2019 format would be Orchist. That is literally the perfect definition of mid-range, whereas a combo deck would be something like Danger Thunder Crusadia, which made billions of negates turn 1, and a control deck would probably be Sky Striker. Of course, in this picture, you can actually see more examples. So right now in the OCG, a bunch of control decks would be Eldritch, Sky Striker. Mid-range would be the fusion deck that is #1 right now, so Branded Despia, Flundery, Salamangreat, and Tenyi Sword Soul. The combo decks would be Brave, Tenyi Sword Soul, Yang Xing, which is completely different from this. This deck does not exist in the TCG because we do not have Dengalong. Lyreless Tri-Brigade, we do have that. It is a combo deck. Drytron, absolutely combo deck. And finally, Virtual World. I want to say I probably would have put Virtual World more in the mid-range category, but with VFD being a thing, used to be a thing, I could actually understand how Virtual World would have been in the combo category. Combo actually starts with a huge advantage because they apply pressure at the speed of light. Control decks, as we have established, are not really good in the early game, so sometimes their hand doesn't really allow them to keep up with the aggressive combo decks. If combo manages to successfully summon multiple threats turn 1, control might not even have an opportunity for a late game. Obviously, as I keep saying, there is no grind game when you can't even survive past turn 1. Combo forces you to have a relevant turn 2, so obviously your turn 1 if you're going second, and control kind of forces you to be able to grind very well after, let's say, at least turn 5 or something. Even though I'd argue that since Yu-Gi-Oh! Is getting so ridiculously fast, you could actually say that the grind game would be like freaking turn 3 now. Anyway, so mid-range versus combo is the exact opposite of what I just said. So this time mid-range actually beats combo, and the reason for that is because mid-range actually have quite a lot of stamina, but at the same time they do get to play a lot of hand traps, and they also get to play very fast. So if you get the hand trap and you just pass turn there, it's not really like Control where they're not really doing too much. They're maybe setting back row and you can still kind of keep up, but this time this is really bad because they might be able to play with literally just 2 cards, and when you get back to your turn, you might not even be able to deal with their interruption since your first combo was kind of stopped. Now, Control versus mid-range is also one of the most interesting. Control kind of wins in a way in game 1 because the hand traps that mid-range decks are playing do not really have an impact against Control. Let's just say that you're playing Eldritch and your opponent is playing, whatever, Salamangrate, and the Salamangrate player drew a lot of Veilers, Imperms, Phantasmes, and stuff like that, Nibiru, and you draw them against a trap deck. You kind of feel a little stupid, so on game 1, you might have a lot of dead cards that just aren't good against Control. However, this gets completely mitigated in game 2 and game 3 because you actually change your hand traps for board breaking cards, spell and trap removal like Harpy's Feather Duster, Lightning Storm evenly, and that's the reason why Control decks, even though they might be very tempting to play in game 1 because they're kind of juicy, they can beat both mid-range and combo, and it really punishes people for playing hand traps. But the thing is, after game 1, you start losing to pretty much everyone. Of course, the same could be actually said with combo, where they could lose game 2 and game 3 to Silver Bullet hand traps like Drolin Logbird, Nibiru, Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplet, etc. We're actually moving into a world in which a lot of these old side deck cards are now actually being main decked instead. But yeah, I'm going to read this paragraph. So the speed of the game is often decided by the faster playstyle. For example, in the combo versus Control matchup, combo would dictate the game by going all out and try to close out the game as fast as possible, while Control would want to slow down the game in order to stabilize. The roles that each deck plays here is key in understanding the flow of the game. Combo decks need to win fast because they would run out of threats as the game drags on. So with Lyraless Tri-Brigade, for example, if your entire turn 1 is broken, your only kind of good grind would be Barrel Canary, revive back a monster, get a search, maybe make a Zeus, and that's almost it. But you kind of had to give up on so many cards from your extra deck that your deck isn't that great. You still, I guess, have the Tri-Brigade monsters. Even the aggressive combo decks almost have 2 good grind game right now, which isn't really fair, and that's the reason why a lot of people want to completely destroy the combo decks, and people complain a lot about them right now, because that wasn't always the case. Sometimes combo decks just have the worst grind games out of literally everyone because they empty their entire hand and they have no more relevant monsters in the extra deck. What I just said perfectly matches this paragraph. So for example, Brave Tenny, if they use their only one of Mecha Phantobeast or Radon, they can't really start by summoning other threats because they already went into their Needle Fiber or Radon, whatever, all of those cards. So even if they would still have them in the extra deck, for example, maybe the monsters that they summon are now in the graveyard, so you can't really play with those cards anymore. Recognizing the role of each deck also signifies that the initiators sometimes have to take certain risks in order to find an opportunity to win. If a combo deck has an opportunity to OTK, they might have to take the chance and try to go for game despite running the risk of being thwarted by Nibiru the Primal Being. Playing slow and going for suboptimal play might put them further behind, and they would be playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Now, this is one of the most beautiful sentences I've read in a while. It's really relevant, and a lot of people don't really understand maybe the meaning behind it because they think that the negative of a negative is always a positive because that is true for math, so it has to be true for everything else. Try to picture this in your head. Let's say you're playing soccer, whatever sport. There's a huge difference between trying to score on your opponent and trying to actually get your score up of your team than, you know, trying to just stop your opponent from scoring and just playing defensively. So when you're trying to score, you're actually being proactive, also defending yourself in a way. It's both offense and defense. Whereas when you're only playing defense, all you're really doing is you're kind of emptying out your opponent's threats in the early game, but you're not really being proactive. You're being actually very reactive, and that doesn't really make you win early on. So you actually might have a huge disadvantage, and if your defense is not as strong as your opponent's sword, and your shield breaks, then your opponent scores, and unfortunately you're going to lose before you even have a chance to grind with your opponent. Either way, this is really complicated, and exactly again, as Akira said, the OCG metagame paradigm is a simplification and not an absolute, so a lot can actually change in the future. We never know, maybe some decks are going to be controlled but super combo-y at the same time. So the foremost purpose is to identify the roles of each deck and play to their strength during the matchup. Through your own games and while watching streams or videos of tournaments, try to identify the roles of each deck and evaluate whether the players are playing at the correct tempo that corresponds to their roles. I completely agree with this. It's absolutely factual. You really have to kind of be able to tell, oh, is this kind of a control deck? How slow or how fast it should play? Should you actually kind of vomit your interruptions right now? Should you kind of be thinking more long term, etc.? And that's definitely what's going to make you a much better player in Yu-Gi-Oh! It really is absolutely crucial. Definitely can't speak of experience because out of my 2 YCS tops, one of them was with an extremely aggressive combo deck, which was True Jericho Metal Foes, and the second one was with a pretty controlled deck, Cyber Dragon Trap. So I can definitely tell that there are huge differences in playstyle between both, and both reward you in completely different manners. And another huge tip that I want to give to players, maybe some more beginners, is that there's no such thing as a preferred playstyle. You cannot hide behind this excuse forever. You can't just say, oh, I'm not a big fan of control decks, so I'm always going to play combo decks. You cannot do that. You have to be open-minded and kind of tell yourself, you know what, I need to play whatever works fine if I want to be at the top level of the competition. So if the control deck is actually the correct option this format, I'm going to be playing control. If combo is better, I'm going to be playing combo. I'm not too sure which one is the best. I feel like mid-range kind of beats both of them, so I'm going to play mid-range this format. Maybe mid-range is the way to go. So definitely mess around, theory, test with your friends, etc. Watch streams, videos of other people playing the game, and try to analyze all the weird little details. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this OCG metagame paradigm. I really hope you guys were able to learn a thing or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.